What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in. Today I wanted to show you my personal recipe that I like to use for making some chili. Now sometimes I do the turkey chili, sometimes I use beef. Today I happen to have some lean beef, 93% lean. I also use 93% lean with the turkey, and they come out to be basically the same macronutrients. So I kind of use them interchangeably. Personally, I like the taste of the beef a little more, but it's kind of nice to switch it up every so often. So this whole thing, the whole batch, is $8 pretty much, give or take. But I usually split it up into two portions, so that's about a $4 meal, which is less than most fast food combos. So honestly, I'd say you're getting a pretty good bang for your buck. The whole thing is going to come out to be 920 calories. That's the whole batch. But if you split it up into two, then each one's going to be about 460 calories. And each half will have 16 grams of fat, 28 grams of carbs, and 52 grams of protein. So you're getting a pretty good amount of protein here. Now, what I have first is a pound of ground beef. This is where pretty much all the protein is coming from, obviously. It's about 92 grams of protein in this whole thing, 0 grams of carbs, and about 32 grams of fat. Now, depending on how else you get your fat in your diet, you could choose to get a more lean or more fatty version of this. But either way, you're gonna have about the same amount of protein. Now, the other thing I have here is the red beans. You can use dark red kidney beans, chili beans. I just personally like these. So really you could change that up with anything else, but this has 0 grams of fat. It has 10 grams of carbs and 3 grams of protein. Now that's for a quarter cup. A serving is a half cup, but honestly, I just use a quarter cup because I'm already getting enough carbs in my day, and I don't really need much more from these beans. And a quarter cup of beans in this is honestly fine for me personally. Now, the next thing I have is the stewed tomatoes. I love these, especially the stewed ones. Something about them just feels a little more real than the diced tomatoes. But yeah, these are great. I use the whole can just because it helps make it a little more saucy. The whole can is going to be about 105 calories, and it has 0 grams of fat. It has 25 grams of carbs, so that's where a lot of the carbs here are coming from, and 4 grams of protein. And the last thing I have here, which honestly I don't always use because depending on how fatty the meat is and all that, it'll be pretty saucy already, but I have this little thing of tomato sauce. It costs like 20 cents, and the whole thing is about 90 calories, 21 grams of carbs, and 4 grams of protein. So basically it's just straight carbs. And if you're trying to cut your carbs, then maybe you should avoid using this. Now, first thing I do here is strain the tomatoes and the beans and get some of that juice out of there. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. So now that I got all these cans open, I went ahead and I put the pound of meat into the pot, starting to cook up. Went ahead and sort of flattened it out and started poking at it to kind of separate everything while it cooks. And yeah, eventually it'll just kind of turn brown. So now that it's just about all the way cooked, go ahead and I take my beans. I got a quarter cup here. Let's kind of go ahead and fill that up. Trying to get as little amount of juice in there as possible, but so yeah, go ahead, pour that in, give that a nice little stir. Now from here, what I do is I have these little packets of chili seasoning. Cost like 50 cents or so, depending on what brand you get, but this is just the store brand, so it's pretty cheap. But really, I just only need to use like half a packet of this stuff and just spread it in there and stir it around, and it'll be smelling really good. So now I got the seasoned meat with the beans. Go ahead and take my strained tomatoes, pour it on there. If you have diced tomatoes, and this doesn't really matter, but I like the stewed ones. They taste a little better to me. So I kind of go ahead and slice them up a little bit, but they're still feeling a little more like whole tomatoes. Now after I've stirred these tomatoes up a bit, I kind of let it sit for a while, and you'll see kind of a sauce start to form. Now, this is where I was saying, depending on how fatty the meat is, it'll kind of turn out a little saucier in a way. This beef is typically a little saucier than the turkey. So a lot of times I don't even really have to use the tomato sauce because it turns out saucy enough. But if you feel like you would like it more saucy, then you can add any amount of sauce that you want. Only difference is that it's going to be a little bit more carbs, but depending on your own personal preference, whatever works. So yeah, here's what I got right now. It's looking fairly saucy, but I think I am going to throw some of that tomato sauce in there. Go ahead and take that. So yeah, now that I've gone ahead and stirred that up, you can see it's looking like some saucy chili. And that's really about it. Once again, half of one of these is about 16 grams of fat, 28 grams of carbs, 52 grams of protein, and that makes up about 460 calories. And it only costs about $4 for half of this. So what I like to do is I like to split it up in little Tupperware containers. I can keep one of them for later or the next day, and it keeps really well in the fridge. It doesn't get weird or anything. So I really hope you guys have enjoyed this. I know it's nice to kind of switch up what your protein dense meal is for either like lunch or dinner. Yeah, if you enjoyed this, then please like or leave a comment. Feel free to subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And don't forget to stay lifted.